These are 13 Christmas movies from the 1980s that either crashed at the box office, earned scathing reviews, or were perceived as disappointments despite their actual performance. While the decade gave us enduring classics, it also produced spectacular Yuletide failures that left critics wondering what went wrong. You may be surprised to learn that Santa Claus, the movie, stands as the most legendary Christmas box office disaster of the entire 1980s. Released in 1985 with a staggering $50 million budget, the film managed to gross only $23.7 million domestically, resulting in losses of approximately $26 million. To put that in perspective, the budget exceeded the combined budgets of Back to the Future and The Goonies. The film came from producers Alexander and Ilya Salkind, who had found success with Superman. They built elaborate North Pole sets on the famous 007 stage at Pinewood Studios, sparing no expense. The cast included David Huddleston as Santa, Dudley Moore as the Elf Patch, and John Lithgow as the villainous businessman BZ. Director John Carpenter was originally offered the job but turned it down. The production sparked controversy when 10 reindeer were taken down in Norway so their skins could be used for animatronic puppets. Critics savaged the film. Vincent Canby of the New York Times called it elaborate and tacky, while John Lithgow himself later described it in 2019 as one of the tackiest movies I'd ever been in. What makes the film fascinating is the stark divide between its American failure and British success. While it bombed in the United States, it became beloved in the United Kingdom, becoming the most repeated Christmas film on British TV. The movie received a 2023 remaster and theatrical re-release in the UK, proof of its enduring popularity there. The blatant product placement for Coca-Cola and McDonald's particularly offended American critics, though British viewers seemed less bothered. One Magic Christmas represents one of Disney's rare Christmas misfires from the 80s. The Disney and Telefilm Canada co-production had a budget that started at $9 million, but was scaled back to $7.5 million during production. It ultimately grossed $13.7 million, making it technically profitable but far from the blockbuster Disney hoped for. The film starred Mary Steenburgen as a depressed mother whose husband has lost his job and the family faces eviction. Harry Dean Stanton played Gideon, an angel sent to restore the woman's Christmas spirit. The script came from Thomas Meehan, who had previously penned Annie, Hairspray, The Producers, and Spaceballs. What doomed One Magic Christmas was its relentlessly dark tone. This was supposed to be a Disney family film, but it contained a bank robbery, people getting taken down, children being taken, and a car accident. The film earned a 47% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, with critics noting the disconnect between Disney's wholesome brand and the movie's grim subject matter. The production faced challenges from the start. Filming took 8 months in Meaford, Ontario, which experienced an unseasonably warm winter. The crew had to truck in 5 tons of snow to create proper Christmas atmosphere. Despite its underwhelming theatrical performance, One Magic Christmas has found second life on Disney+, though it remains divisive even among nostalgic viewers. Two of a Kind represents one of the most spectacular Christmas disasters of 1983. With a $14 million budget, it grossed $23.6 million, but earned a dismal 18% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and 5 Razzie nominations. The movie starred John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John in what was meant to be a triumphant Grease reunion. Instead, it became a career low point. The plot involved God planning to destroy Earth, but giving humanity one last chance if 2 people can prove love still exists. Gene Hackman provided the voice of God, replacing an originally planned Orson Welles version that was scrapped. Here's the problem. Two of a Kind contains minimal actual Christmas content. It's a religious fantasy about God and angels, not a traditional Christmas story. The holiday setting feels like window dressing, which partly explains why audiences rejected it. Combined with Staying Alive's failure earlier that year, Two of a Kind effectively ended Travolta's A-list status until Pulp Fiction revived his career 11 years later. Ironically, despite the film bombing, the soundtrack went platinum. The music found an audience even when the movie couldn't. For audiences expecting a fun Grease reunion, the disappointment was palpable. Nutcracker, the motion picture, was released theatrically by Atlantic Releasing Corporation on November 26, 1986, and was largely ignored at the box office despite prestigious talent. The production featured costume and art design by Maurice Sendak, famous author of Where the Wild Things Are, and direction by Carol Ballard, who had helmed The Black Stallion and Never Cry Wolf. The film adapted the Pacific Northwest Ballet's 1983 stage production. When Walt Disney executives saw the stage show, they convinced the creators to adapt it for film. However, the movie faced significant compromises. Filmed on a tight budget over just 10 days, the production team struggled to realize their full vision. Director Ballard and Sendak wanted to incorporate much more of E.T.A. Hoffman's darker original story, particularly the hard nut plot element. But producers, interested in making a cheap Christmas film for quick profit, refused to allow creative expansion. Roger Ebert gave mixed reviews, writing it doesn't succeed in breaking out into an interesting artistic achievement, and noted no reason to see the film instead of attending one of the innumerable live productions available every holiday season. Other critics pointed out the film's slightly creepy undertone and uncomfortable dynamic between Drosselmeyer and young Clara. The film mostly came and went without fanfare, now largely forgotten except among ballet enthusiasts. Prancer faced the ultimate box office nightmare, opening the same weekend as Disney's The Little Mermaid and All Dogs Go to Heaven. Released by Orion Pictures in 1989 with an estimated budget between $5 and $8 million, the film grossed $16.1 million but debuted at number 7 with only $2.9 million. The film starred Rebecca Harrell as Jessica, a girl who discovers an injured reindeer she believes is Prancer. The supporting cast included Sam Elliott, Cloris Leachman, and Abe Vigoda. The realistic, melancholic tone about a struggling widowed father and his daughter set it apart from typical Christmas fare, which may have contributed to its struggles. The production used a pregnant reindeer named Boo because pregnant reindeer keep their antlers longer. This was 1989, before CGI, so filmmakers had to work with real animals. The box office trajectory shows the competition's impact. Opening weekend brought $2.9 million. The second week over Thanksgiving saw it increase to $4.05 million, but by week 3, it plummeted 52% to $1.93 million. Critics compared Prancer to E.T. with antlers and praised its authenticity, but these qualities made it harder to sell to audiences seeking lighter Christmas entertainment. The film has been largely forgotten, overshadowed by The Little Mermaid's cultural impact. A Christmas Story occupies a unique position in Christmas movie history. Released in 1983 with a $3.25 million budget, it grossed $20.8 million domestically, a 6 times return, making it technically profitable. However, the film was perceived as a disappointment at the time. Directed by Bob Clark and based on Gene Shepard's writings, the film follows young Ralphie Parker's quest to convince everyone that a Red Ryder Range 200-shot BB gun is the perfect Christmas gift. Despite earning 77 on Metacritic, it didn't capture audiences' imagination immediately. It came and went from theaters without making a significant splash. The transformation came 14 years later in 1997 when TBS launched its 24 Hours of a Christmas Story marathon. Running the film continuously on Christmas became an instant tradition. Suddenly, millions discovered it through these marathons. The repetition worked in the film's favor, allowing audiences to catch it at different points and gradually absorb its humor. This television afterlife changed everything. A Christmas Story went from modest theatrical performer to genuine Christmas classic. You'll shoot your eye out, and the pink bunny suit became instantly recognizable. The Cleveland house used for exterior shots became a tourist attraction and museum. The film's journey illustrates how theatrical box office doesn't always predict long-term cultural impact. Mickey's Christmas Carol was released theatrically on December 16, 1983, packaged with a re-release of The Rescuers. The 26-minute featurette marked Mickey Mouse's first theatrical appearance in 30 years and was heavily marketed as his big-screen comeback. Despite the nostalgic appeal, the film received 2 thumbs down from Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert on At the Movies. Siskel felt there wasn't enough emphasis on Mickey's character despite the title, and it didn't rank with Disney's full-length animated features. Ebert stated it lacked the magic of visual animation that the Disney people are famous for, and was a forced march through the Charles Dickens story without ironic spin. The film was nominated for an Academy Award as Best Animated Short Subject, but lost to Sunday in New York. While many viewers have fond memories of watching it on television during annual broadcasts that began in 1984, the theatrical reception was decidedly mixed. Critics and audiences were disappointed that Mickey himself had limited screen time with the film essentially being a Scrooge McDuck vehicle. The featurette found greater success on television than in theaters, where it aired annually for decades on NBC, CBS, and Disney Channel, often paired with other winter-themed Disney shorts to fill a full hour of programming. A Christmas Carol starring George C. Scott was made for television in the United States but received theatrical release in the United Kingdom. Directed by Clive Donner and filmed on location in Shrewsbury, England, the production featured impressive cinematography and production values that exceeded typical TV movie standards. While the film has since become highly regarded, with many considering it one of the best adaptations of Dickens' novella, it represents the complicated landscape of Christmas entertainment in the 80s. The theatrical release in the UK allowed British audiences to see it on the big screen, though American audiences had to wait for the CBS broadcast on December 17, 1984. Scott was nominated for an Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actor in a limited series or special for his portrayal of Scrooge. The film received positive reviews, with critics praising Scott's performance, the cinematography, and the production design. However, its hybrid nature as a TV movie with theatrical aspirations meant it existed in an unusual category for Christmas entertainment. The film has run in syndication on American channels since its debut and was released on VHS and DVD. It returned to national television on AMC in 2007 and continues to air each December, having become one of the most beloved versions of the classic tale despite its unconventional distribution path. Babes in Toyland was a made-for-television movie in the United States that received theatrical release in Europe. Starring Drew Barrymore and Keanu Reeves, the film was directed by Clive Donner and shot on location in Munich, Germany in summer 1986. It aired on NBC on December 19, 1986, and was later released to foreign theatrical markets. The film featured an 11-year-old Barrymore as Lisa, who travels to Toyland on Christmas Eve and teams up with the Toy Master, played by Pat Morita, and Jack Nimble, played by Reeves. The plot involves stopping the villainous Barnaby Barnacle, played by Richard Mulligan, from destroying Toyland. The original cut ran 145 minutes but was heavily edited to 94 minutes for foreign theatrical and US home video versions. The film received mixed reviews, with critics noting that while Drew Barrymore had moments of charm, Keanu Reeves was wooden with line delivery suggestive of reading from cue cards. The script was considered uninspired, and the musical numbers were unimaginatively staged. One major complaint was the decision to replace most of Victor Herbert's original score with new songs by Leslie Bricusse, whose work critics found excruciating compared to the Herbert Glenn McDonough original. The film has become a nostalgia piece for some who watched it as children, but it's generally considered one of the weaker adaptations of the Babes in Toyland story. Ernest Saves Christmas presents a fascinating contradiction: the highest-grossing Ernest film ever made that critics absolutely panned. Released by Touchstone Pictures in 1988 with a $6.5 million budget, the film grossed $28.2 million and opened at number 2 with $5.7 million. That's a massive commercial success by any standard. However, critical reception told a different story. The film earned just 40% on Rotten Tomatoes and 44% on Metacritic. Critics panned it for being overly sentimental and featuring excessively goofy humor. The plot followed Santa searching for a successor with help from Ernest P. Worrell, played by Jim Varney, as they raced to save Christmas. Despite the critical drubbing, the film succeeded commercially due to Jim Varney's charisma, timely holiday release, and family appeal. It was the first major feature filmed almost entirely in Orlando, Florida, at Disney MGM Studios. The movie has become a holiday favorite for many viewers despite the critical panning, proving that audience appeal doesn't always align with critical consensus. Ernest Saves Christmas demonstrates that box office success and critical approval are entirely separate measures. The film made more than 4 times its budget and became the franchise's peak financial achievement, yet critics dismissed it as lowbrow holiday fare. For families who embraced Ernest's goofy charm, however, the film delivered exactly what they wanted. Scrooged, starring Bill Murray, was released in 1988 with a $32 million budget and ultimately grossed over $100 million worldwide, making it a commercial success. However, the film received intensely mixed reviews that make it worth including in any discussion of problematic 80s Christmas movies. The film, directed by Richard Donner and written by Mitch Glazer and Michael O'Donoghue, was a modern retelling of A Christmas Carol with Murray as Frank Cross, a cynical television executive. Pre-release test audiences in summer 1988 gave it extremely positive ratings, with 93% rating it very good, the highest Paramount had received at the time. However, press screenings closer to release received responses ranging from ovations to disgruntlement. Roger Ebert called it one of the most disquieting, unsettling films to come along in quite some time, saying it portrayed pain and anger more than comedy. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave it only a B+ grade. The film's marketing capitalized on Murray's Ghostbusters role with taglines like, "Bill Murray is back among the ghosts, only this time, it's 3 against 1. Despite mixed critical reaction, Scrooged opened November 23, 1988, alongside Ghostbusters' competitor status. By the Christmas holiday period, it had fallen to 9th place behind The Land Before Time and Oliver and Company, leaving theaters after 8 weeks. The film was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Makeup, but lost to Beetlejuice. Since release, Scrooged has become a regular television Christmas feature, with some calling it an alternative to traditional Christmas films. The intensely divided critical and audience reaction makes it one of the decade's most controversial holiday offerings. This next film was a surprise indeed. Gremlins occupies unusual territory as a Christmas movie that became a massive hit despite, or perhaps because of, its darker edge. Released on June 8, 1984, with an $11 million budget, the film grossed $148 million domestically. This made it the 4th highest-grossing film of the year behind Beverly Hills Cop, Ghostbusters, and Indiana Jones, and The Temple of Doom. However, the film earned its place in discussions of problematic Christmas movies through controversy. Gremlins was heavily criticized for violent sequences, and combined with complaints about Indiana Jones and The Temple of Doom, it prompted Steven Spielberg to suggest the MPAA create a new PG-13 rating, which happened within 2 months of release. The film, directed by Joe Dante and written by Chris Columbus, follows Billy Peltzer, who receives Gizmo as a pet. When the rules for caring for Mogwai are broken, the creatures spawn and evolve into destructive gremlins that wreak havoc on Billy's hometown during Christmas Eve. Critics questioned the summer release date for a film set during Christmas, feeling it should have had a holiday release instead. The movie received mixed critical reaction initially. One BBC critic wrote in 2000 that, "The plot is thin and the pacing is askew," though praising the dark humor contrasted against the ideal Christmas setting. Another critic wrote the film had corny special effects and dull acting. Despite mixed criticism, Gremlins has received praise over the years and holds 86% on Rotten Tomatoes. It became part of a rising trend combining horror and comedy. Alongside Ghostbusters, manufacturers produced Gizmo dolls that became high-demand toys during the 1984 holiday season. The film's legacy as both Christmas movie and horror comedy makes it one of the decade's most unusual holiday offerings. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation was released December 1st, 1980. Muted enthusiasm. The film, written and produced by John Hughes and directed by Jeremiah Chechik, stars Chevy Chase as Clark Griswold attempting to have a perfect family success. The 1980s proved that Christmas magic couldn't guarantee box office gold or critical acclaim. Santa Claus. The movie's $50 million budget couldn't buy success, losing half its investment despite elaborate sets. One Magic Christmas showed even Disney could misjudge audiences by delivering depression instead of cheer. Two of a Kind wasted the Grease reunion, earning 18% on Rotten Tomatoes. Nutcracker. The motion picture disappeared despite Maurice Sendak's involvement, while Prancer got crushed by The Little Mermaid. Mickey's Christmas Carol received 2 thumbs down from Siskel and Ebert. The George C. Scott Christmas Carol found better reception in UK theaters than American television. Babes in Toyland's made-for-TV origins showed through wooden performances. Ernest Saves Christmas became the franchise's biggest hit while earning critical scorn. Scrooged divided audiences despite Bill Murray's star power. Gremlins succeeded commercially but sparked the PG-13 rating creation through controversy. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation found eventual classic status despite initially mixed reviews. Perhaps most fascinating is A Christmas Story's arc from perceived disappointment to classic through TBS marathons, proving theatrical failure doesn't determine ultimate legacy. These 13 films remind us that Hollywood's attempts to manufacture Christmas magic in the 80s often resulted in expensive coal, critical drubbings, or complicated legacies that took years to sort out.